That's crazy. That's right. Hey,
Hey, how's it going, everyone? We we were just watching the intro video with you and realized we're talking about the space, and yet the video has a lot of the history of the space,
yeah,
right?
the elements, right?
Yeah.
I remember the receiver from the living room that then went into reclaimed video, the
hmm
reclaimed video carpet, which was an ordeal to put in, the
We won't
co-working
get into that.
space,
Yeah.
right? Um, yeah, it's interesting. And then like the Dead Mookman and all the different
Yeah.
Domain 17 conference stuff.
Yeah.
It's interesting, and it feels like both interesting, but a long way away from where the space is now.
That's right.
Right? It's
And where
true.
is the space now? It's in a pretty
It's
interesting evolution of it, isn't
oh,
it?
it is. It is an apotheosis. I
It
don't know how
really
it gets
is.
better. This is the space has absolutely bloomed,
Yeah.
blossomed into a full blown arcade.
Yeah. You've got a nice little work shirt
Oh
going
yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
got
yeah.
my. I'm working. Antonella says I look like the janitor of Reclaim Arcade, and like in some ways
Yeah.
we have been for
Yeah.
4 years, right? Like we've been
For
just
sure.
with the idea of trying to preserve something to bring it people to the because I feel like it has taken a lot of maintenance and a lot of community
Yeah.
beyond us. People like Monitor Boy and other people in the arcade world who have actually helped us have a really awesome arcade.
Legends of the community.
Oh my gosh.
You haven't read that comic, Monitor Boy? Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been a real trip. And I mean, I think I was telling you yesterday, I can't believe we're in week 2 already. Like we're already on
Yeah.
our second weekend, well underway of the arcade being
Right.
open. And really, literally right behind these walls, 20 people are
Yeah.
playing over 57 arcade games, 8 pinball machines, the 80s music is running, like it's happening.
I
And
just talked with two women in
yeah,
the living room, and they were basically like, "This is amazing. This is exactly like the '80s like living room I had." And then like started reminiscing, and then we were talking about like when we opened and stuff. And I was like, "Yeah, like it when it hits and people like it hits on an emotional level. It hits as an installation of something of a time." But then there's also really nicely preserved games
yeah,
and pinball, which has been
right.
super popular, and
It's
then
like a
people just dig
practical
in,
fun,
you
right?
know,
Yeah,
and that's been so cool to watch. And the games are in a good position; they're
yeah.
in a good shape right now.
They are. It's an awesome experience seeing people walk in because I think we did it right, which is they come into the VHS video store and immediately they're like, thought I was coming to an arcade, and you're in this tiny room. You can't see into the arcade from there. It's just the Reclaim Video store with one door. And, they see all the videos and stuff. They get checked in. Then they walk through the door, and the first thing they see is the 80s living room. Like now they're in their living room before actually they walk into the larger arcade space. So it's like more and more elements of like, where am I? And just traveling back in time until they get to the main arcade space, which is both nostalgic but also futuristic. I
Yeah,
mean, we really pulled in that almost Blade Runner feel with the lighting and the
yeah,
music and all the sounds and everything. And
it's
the
great.
the games make great furniture, right? Like so,
Oh,
it's
the
really
best.
impressive, I think, for people. And you wouldn't know it from this like strip mall shopping center that you drive up to. We've had some people just come in because they saw the sign out front and had no idea what they were
Yeah,
in for when they walked through the doors and
they're
they're
like,
like,
"Whoa,
what is
what? This is
happening? What is
here?"
this? Yeah.
They're like, "Really? This is here in
Right.
Fredericksburg?" It's like, "Yep, this
Yeah.
is this." And like when you walk in, like Tim said, it's like you usually, as they're walking through the VHS store into the living room, you hear something like "Holy shit!" or like what the? Like you hear that, and then like about 5 seconds, 3 seconds later, you hear a whoa, and that's when
Yeah.
they've actually moved away from the living room
Right.
and seen the actual
The actual
arcade,
arcade.
which
Yeah.
is blown up by a neon sign,
Yeah, the
which was
huge
like
neon.
the beginning of it in November when we were like, holy, the potential for this space to just pop like that
Mhm.
was real, and we nailed it.
Yeah.
It just, the space itself is a trip. Like it's a wild corner to go around. VHS, living room, arcade.
Yeah.
I love that 1, 2, 3 punch.
Yeah. And it's been cool that people have come out. I mean, like I said, we're in week 2.
Yeah,
There's a full house behind us now. It's
yeah,
been busy
it's
all day
great.
long, and even in future weeks, we're already seeing people book out lots of private parties, lots of families. I've seen
A
lots of
lot of
people with
families, a lot of
kids.
kids.
I've seen people, we've got step stools and people are bringing kids
That's
as
right.
small as 3 and 4 years old and propping them up and playing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with them or learning how to play pinball machines. And
Yeah, hanging
it's
out in the
super
living
cool.
room, talking
Yeah.
about like one father today was working with his kids about Atari,
Yeah.
and they were playing like I think Atari Asteroids
Uh-huh.
and then Space Invaders, and that was super cool to just see him explain. Well, this is how the TVs used to look, and this is how the consoles, like that Switch you have. This is kind of like what a kid my age, when I was your age, you know what
Yeah.
I mean, would have had.
Yeah,
And so,
I mean, I think we've had everybody from 3 years old to 53 and everything in between here.
right.
And everybody has fun. Like, everybody leaves here saying, I'll be back. Like, this is really cool and I'll come back. So,
Today we got, and this is I think a good. Today's been a great day.
Yeah.
We've been getting great compliments. Like the place is filling up. Like it just feels good.
yeah.
It's a good day for Reclaim Arcade. And someone on top of that came in with a tub of VHS. I wasn't
Oh,
there.
yeah.
You were there.
Yeah.
Like 150 VHS tapes,
Yeah.
a tub.
He showed up. He had emailed me ahead of time and asked if we buy out stuff, and I said no, not really. I mean, if you want to donate stuff to us, totally fine. But we're not in the buy, sell, trade, whatever. It's a collection that we use in the space. And he was like, oh, okay, well, I'll probably still bring them. And so then today he shows up and he's like, I need help lifting them out of the car. And I'm like, okay. So me and Shane, one of our employees, go out there, and it is one of those massive Rubbermaid tubs full to the brim with VHS tapes and a working VCR.
And a beautiful JVC hi-fi stereo VCR, kind of late 90s, mid 90s. Yeah, it was an absolute beautiful haul.
Yeah, it's been super cool to see just people in the community come out and to learn about that. I think you mentioned that the people you were talking to are associated with a homeschool group that has booked 2 separate sessions for 30 kids to come out here and learn a little bit about the history of arcade games and all of that, and then obviously get to play in the arcade. So it's a little field trip for them to come out here and be able to do something safely, and we're doing that during the week. So even not while we're actually open, we'll be doing that on weekdays. So that was a cool opportunity. Like already getting into some educational programming, I'm all about it, right?
Yeah,
So,
it's been really cool.
yeah,
And that the space is just kind of ready to be occupied.
yeah,
Like it's sitting between Tim and I using it as an office or just collecting these games for now 2 years, 2.5. To see other people use them and to like have them where they should be in a position where they're accessible is everything.
yeah. I think the hardest part is resisting the urge to change things. Like resisting the urge to say, well, what's next? Because obviously we're always like, we've worked on this concept for so long. Now that it's successful, we're immediately like, well, should we open up more days? Should we do discounts on the weekends? And like marketing is a big part of it too. It's like, and we're still trying to learn what it means to market a physical location that serves the public.
It's different.
It's very different
very
in that
different than
regard.
what we
I mean,
know.
there's obviously overlap in terms of the word of mouth aspect, which has always been really big with Reclaim Hosting.
Facebook has been gigantic.
Yeah, whereas like Reclaim Hosting doesn't even have a Facebook account. So it's like, you know, it's like there are things that are the same and things that are very different in terms of how you market it. But I think right now, what we're trying to find comfort in is just this is working and this is working well. So let's continue that and build off of it and see what the community wants, what they're asking for, and kind of build it over time rather than, great, now let's change it up and let's do this week and let's do all of that, because we have tons of ideas. I mean, we've talked about everything from Saturday morning cartoons with the half off special with you and your family, and we talked about opening up Thursday nights, whether we do tournaments for Mortal Kombat 2 or pinball tournaments or something like that, and all kinds of various ideas and things. And I think that stuff will come. A big wrench in a lot of that stuff is COVID, right? There's a lot of restrictions, rightfully so, around how many people you can have in the space and how do you control the flow of traffic in there. And I think we've done a really good job right now of controlling that and knowing how many people are in the space, leaving room for cleaning and for social distancing and stuff. But it's really hard when you start thinking through things like, well, we'll just open it up on a Thursday night for people to come. And you want to do it, but at the same time, you're like, well, we don't want just anybody to show up. We don't want to be that kind of business that's just like, party, you know, like out till midnight, those kind of things. So it's difficult.
In fact, we've even doubled down on like Wi-Fi. So much are we concerned about this, but rather than us having other things out there, we created a TV antenna that from this studio can send over Raspberry Pi of various kind of media, right?
That's right.
and
Over the
it's
air.
picked up on 2 different TVs, so you can social distance the TVs and everything in
Gotcha.
between and send the stuff
I was wondering
out.
where you were going to come back to the COVID regulations and over-the-air broadcasting.
But it's been fun in that,
Yeah.
like, it is very controlled, small space. But like, we've been able to, even on this trip, actually like do some cool stuff.
Yeah.
Like, we built some storage because we have, you know, extra boards and stuff that we got to start maintaining. We have like space now we got to make for these pieces and the games and the maintenance. But then also, like, we have a little time to experiment with you getting games online,
Right.
us playing with TV, dialing in some of the living room and VHS store. It's been so cool to see it because it's super functional. The space
Right.
with 20 people in it feels like it's empty,
Yeah.
right? We have, you know, no one's in there with them. You have a party, you're by yourself, but also like you're separate as an employee. So they can all do that and everything runs. The games have stayed
Right.
up. We haven't had major problems. Like,
Yeah, it's very self-service in that
very
regard.
It's like it's not only beautiful, but it's also highly functional.
Right.
And I just love that about it. Like, it's a really 1-2. It's very, in some ways, the arcade itself is very minimal. It's just the games.
Yeah, and I think if there's a lesson that we've learned in taking from Reclaim Hosting and we took it here was that, like, you know, we had employees from day one. We trained them up to make sure that, like, I mean, we're sitting here recording an episode while there's a full house behind us
Yeah.
playing the games. Not literally like the green screen. That's obviously just an image. But
There's a wall.
there is a green screen wall behind us, and behind that is the arcade. And there are tons of people, not tons, but there's a full house in terms of the limits that we've put on it over there. And we've been able to hang out over here and be separate from that. We really spent these 2 weeks making sure they were trained up and comfortable on answering questions, answering the phone, problems that come up, even basic arcade troubleshooting. I taught them, you know, how to like turn games on and off and open up the glass.
Open up a pinball machine, which was crazy.
Yeah, so like they have the basics down, and obviously that's a bit self-serving. This is open on the weekends. Tim don't want to be here on the weekends, right? So the goal
I even
is
have them looking for VHS mold and on beta, and then also using the head cleaner.
Yeah.
I showed, and then we also have to show them how to use the Selectavision, the Laserdisc, the Betamax, the vinyl. Like, they need to be like, it's kind of a job. Like, you need to be familiar with all the formats. People are going to ask you questions. So Reclaim Arcade.
We're back, and I think they could probably not hear us the whole time. Battery died on the camera, but we're back.
So they couldn't hear that either.
Did you see when it cut out? This is a really professional recording.
Did we tell you how operationalized and good
Look,
we
I'm an
are?
arcade operator. I'm not a fucking, studio man. I moved on.
Exactly. We moved on from the TV studio in September. Yeah, it has moved that fast, though. It does seem like a lifetime ago. But yeah.
But like you were saying, I mean, the space is super functional. People are having fun. And I think the lesson that we learned from the space was, make sure that there's enough help so that we can, be over here and not necessarily have to mind the arcade and everything else. Especially it's open on the weekends. I'm not.
3 days a week is
Tim
nice,
doesn't want to come on the
actually.
weekend. Yeah.
But like, that's the other thing. Like, I mean, practically, Tim doesn't want to be on the weekends. But 3 days means that it's not a 5 or 6 day a week job, or 7. And then it also means that you have time during the week to play with games, to do some maintenance, and it's kind of something we're just doing several days a week. But no one's
it's a
gonna
nice
really
reset. You kind of get to say like what worked, what didn't, and frankly, there wasn't a lot that didn't work. But I mean, what was one of the big lessons that we actually readjusted that very first weekend was we needed a coat rack. I mean, it was a tiny thing, but it was like, oh, people need somewhere to put coats because it's cold outside, and they don't want to drape them over, a table or something like that. So we put a coat rack in the living room for people to set their coats down.
There weren't many surprises like that.
Not huge ones. I think the game maintenance will be a thing, right? Like, so
we already know that.
Yeah,
That's something
that's
we
another
already
one.
did. This, like, what happened? Wizard of War, the sound chip
Right.
had issues. We're testing the Tutankhamun, but we think it was a power like you kind of modulated the power, and that seems to have fixed Tutankhamun. We got new board for Phoenix, but the issue with Phoenix still remains.
Yeah.
So we think it might be a power issue.
But knowing, like, to your point about community, knowing people that fix those things, like I can do some basic troubleshooting and then being able to send it off to someone that does the repairs and sends it back. I mean, that's a good system. We have spare parts so that we can swap boards out. and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, I feel like we're in a really good place to even manage that, which isn't, nothing considering the number of games that we have.
A ton,
So
yeah. We
yeah,
have 50, I think 54 old school video games on the floor and 8 pinball,
wow.
62.
And at least like 2 more on the way, I believe.
Yeah,
So yeah,
exactly.
it
Scramble,
yeah,
Super Cobra
Super
slash
Cobra.
Scambra,
Yeah,
Scramble, and then we're gonna get Wizard of War
Pleiades.
back on. Pleiades, too.
Pleiades.
That's
So
right.
actually 3. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 57 in total if we have
And
room for all of them.
we almost had Space Invaders, we thought, back
Yeah.
up and running.
It'll come eventually.
That
We'll
was
see it
so,
out.
but that was a
Yeah.
moment where we were waiting for Monitor Boy to maybe fix it in the moment.
If every game, that would be, we'll get there eventually, and that's crazy because we're already almost at capacity, and it's been,
Yeah.
we've had to figure out like like breaker issues with electricity and like how many things go on an outlet. The occupancy inspector was like, you're not allowed to use extension cords. So
That's right.
we're like,
Everything
okay,
now is-
so yeah, so let's make sure that all that's good. And we found out the way things were wired in the building, like half the building is on a single breaker. So there have been some challenges there to figure out how to make it all work. And, we can obviously make some of those repairs over time, but we need to
Knock
make
on
sure
wood, we
that.
haven't had problems in that regard.
No, we haven't. No, but
Right.
but it was a scramble, a week leading up to it to make sure that all that stuff was good to go, and now it's
True.
been running really well, and
been
it's exciting.
beautiful.
It's been really rewarding to see people, having fun in the arcade and talking it up. I love compliments, but I mean,
Yeah.
people, just having fun and enjoying the space. It's out of our head and it's into the community. and
Exactly.
great.
That's the thing. It's like out there.
Yeah.
And now, like, whether it's good or not, like, we'll find out. Like,
Yeah.
whatever. But, like, despite it, it feels it. Like, it feels like here's a space that's trying something, that's pulling together some cool elements from our past. And it sits strangely between, like, the art of those cabinets in the 80s and those video games and the history, but also, like, a feel of a place
Yeah.
and a time. And I like that. It kind of like, it's concept and practical good fun.
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
super cool.
there were certainly some months there where I wasn't sure we were going to actually get to this point.
Me neither.
And in my hopes and dreams, I don't think I expected that it would come in January. So I think,
Yeah.
that we were ahead of schedule in that regard and realizing what we could do and that we could still, even in the midst of a pandemic, open safely and do it in the right way and have it still be successful. So
Yeah, it seemed unreal when
Yeah.
we committed to saying we're going to get open in January.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we did it.
yeah, it happened and people are showing up and everybody has commented not just on how fun it is, but also that the customer service and how safe things are and
Yeah.
everything. And so that's a real testament, I think, to the work that we've done.
Well, that's the thing I think, too, that we brought over from Reclaim Hosting was, being attentive and being a bit like we knew good support goes a long way and people feeling happy and taken care of. And I think that's
Yeah.
always been a strength you've had. And like the way, even like when we had the snow on the first weekend,
Yeah.
everybody got discount codes. Everybody was invited to come back. Everybody was like, hey, we know this is like a
Yeah.
time. Like, and then that pays forward.
Yeah, it does for sure. It,
'Cause
it
it's
costs you
good.
almost nothing,
Yeah, to be actually good is actually probably a good idea. Like
Yeah.
to have people who are coming to use interest in mind and to say, look, thank you for what you're doing, supporting us and showing it in kind. It's so cool. So that feels good too, to be dealing with a public again in a different way.
Yeah.
Like a very physical, present public. So that's
Well,
cool.
I have no doubt that the story's not over. And I mean, like I said, we've got plenty of ideas, and it's really just now navigating what's working and what we might want to tweak and what things we want to move into next and when's the right time to do them. Of course, that's a whole nother element. I didn't expect to have to buy hand sanitizer stations, back a year and a half ago when we were dreaming about
Although they're
this.
nice.
They are. They're super
good.
nice, touchless ones. Yeah, it's great. But yeah, it'll be interesting, in the next couple months, in the next year or so, to see where everybody moves and then how we respond to that. Because, like I said, the current situation has required a certain way that we operate, very limited capacity, sessions that are booked in advance, all that kind of stuff. But as time goes on, it'll be really interesting to just get a sense of like, what do we want to change? What
Yeah.
don't we want to change? And where do we go from here?
I just
So-
want to buy more games. So I think as soon as I get the green light, I'm going to be happy.
Yeah. Well, if you know of another building, that would be great because we're pretty much at capacity.
That's true though. Like
Yeah.
I look around and like we filled it.
Yeah. And I don't have any more breakers for it.
It's full. It's like, oh, okay. Looking around here, like, okay, where's that wrecking ball?
Well, we've got options to expand if we need to. We'll see how things go, but it's been fun. I mean, it's super cool to be able to dream this up and to get to a point where it's reality. And now where we go from here is all the next step of the next story.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, I think that's a wrap for this episode. But
big fan.
Stay tuned for the future.
Reclaim Arcade for life.